Hi everyone, welcome to the PBWM Hot Seat Regulatory Compliance and Risk Edition. This time we're going to explore something that's a bit more at a higher level, not discuss about specific topics, but more broadly on how do you approach regulations, how do you approach technology, what's the overall landscape going to look like for the future. So this means we're not going to look at 2026, but we're also not going to look at 2050. We are going to look at still a reality, but that's not today, that the industry needs to prepare for. So to get further into that, it's my pleasure to have Günther with me today to actually peel the layers of what we are going to talk about. Günther, it's a real pleasure to have you here. I know you've had years of experience working in exactly the areas that we discussed. Maybe would you want to get us started a bit for us to also get to know you a bit more of background and what motivates you towards these kind of thinking?
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you. It's great to be here and to be able to discuss all of those things. And you asked me a very difficult question to start with, right? Who are you? Where do you come from? And the reason is because I got two backgrounds, which basically led to what I've been doing before and who also lead to what I'll be doing in the future. And that is on the one hand, obviously, I'm a lawyer who's really fascinated by regulation and in particular the application of regulation. And on the other hand, I have for, more than 20 years now been a venture capital investor in new technologies. And that is something that really fascinates me. And if you take regulation and if you take technology and you bring it together, in particular the technology of tomorrow and the regulation of tomorrow, you can create exciting new things. And that is what I think any advisory practice of tomorrow needs to understand and needs to bring to the business. And the last thing I would add is I love writing books and I love to teach at universities. So that's also where I'm in particular talking with the next generation of people and can also bring in their ideas a little bit.
Brilliant. And now let's get right on with it. So maybe for us to appreciate and understand where we are today, technology has been there. I think it's been changing. There's new technologies that have come up. Regulations is the same case. So is it really an inflection point? Where are we at? How have things evolved? Could you maybe give us a sense of where we stand today? And then we go into the future.
Of course. This guy is not starting with the easy questions here. It's really difficult. So because the real question is who are we, and when you say where we stand, so there's Switzerland, there's Singapore, there's America, there's Europe, and they all have different starting points, right? So I'll start with Switzerland because this is where I'm based, and it's really, really interesting also when you think about tomorrow. So Switzerland has its history, its very unique history that created Switzerland, and that is mostly about taking people's money and making sure it's there tomorrow, and some additional money that comes on top of it is there as well. So that's all good and fine, but I think the world has changed, right? So you have people from all over the world who bring their money to Swiss players, and there is the one important thing coming in, and that is regulation. And that tells you how you can engage with those people and how you cannot engage with them. So that is probably an inflection point, which started, I would say, after the last financial crisis with the introduction of foreign regulation into Switzerland. Mm-hmm. Because Switzerland had its own kind of reality, and all of a sudden we had all those big things from, I don't know, in the European sense, UCITS, AFMD, GDPR, and so forth, coming into Switzerland, and they have been indirectly transposed, and people had to think about how to do that. And there's various strategies of how you can do that. And then we see a lot of international players. Singapore, right, very important, has grown tremendously, and it's being combined with Switzerland in many, many areas, and I guess we'll be talking about that. And then obviously the EU and America as well, which have their own challenges.
Excellent. And how do you compare and contrast? Are there things that one or the other region is a bit ahead? Which regulatory areas? Where is innovation actually happening? And where are the biggest, likely going to be winners depending on how the regulators are actually behaving?
So the one question people always ask, what does it mean for Swiss players? And if I'm very honest, if I look back 10 years and if I look ahead 10 years, there has been one movement, and that is the decimation of people, right? Or of players, I should say. So when I started, there was like, I don't know the exact numbers, but something like 300 banks in Switzerland. Now we're probably more around 150, depending how you count them and so forth. And I think 10 years from now, it will be half of that. Is that good or bad? I think actually it's good, because it means that those who are there tomorrow or will be there tomorrow have to focus on really understanding what is driving the world today. And that is, at the end of the day, also on the one hand technology, but also regulation, right? So I think Switzerland has had a lot of challenges over the past couple of years, but those who really understand that and do it well will be very equipped for the future to do something amazing.
Got it. Now let's take it one more notch up.
Sure.
We speak about technology and regulations. We are talking about, I don't know, AI, blockchain. There is also crypto. I know the point of views have changed on digital assets across the different years. So where do you see are the key areas in the technology that will take more or less maybe, if not the center stage, but really an important stage in the next years to come? And how are the regulators actually dealing with it, and how are the banks actually dealing with it?
Well, first of all, those developments have been here for a couple of years, and what you've seen is that most banks on the outside have not been dealing with them immediately, right? So it's been starting more from, I would say, bottom up rather than top down. But the reality is that also the big banks have been playing with them and exploring them and trying to create something that allows them to work with that, but it's just more complex for them because they're huge banks. So I think just to pick up on the examples you've mentioned, blockchain as a baseline technology in the background is amazing. It's doing a lot of things, but to bring that into the banking reality of a bank, which is largely built around technology, is tricky because those technologies are from the 90s or maybe early 2000s, and that is way before when blockchain was really invented as something. So that is a big challenge. The same is true for AI, which is changing everything. Any kind of industry on anything on this planet is affected hugely by AI, and it's also affecting them to lay off a lot of people, to retrain people, and to bring them in a different way. So that is happening as well. So to give you an example, I mean, the house I live in Zurich had a very interesting baseline because at the very bottom there was a bank in there, which is now gone, and it was the second biggest bank of Switzerland, which nobody would have believed is changing, right? And that was a mixture of obviously decisions, but also of how you respond to social media and so forth. And that was done wrong, right? So I think banks today, and think about how they go into tomorrow, they need to understand that. And then there's many other subjects which you touched upon, like sustainability, which is mainly driven by regulation again, where people in particularly Europe said that this needs to be brought in and created regulation that tells you how to do banks and products around that and so forth. So we have really banks going into that as such and saying we are a bank of tomorrow. We have a lot of products going in there. And then there's all the things that will come beyond that.
Interesting, you mentioned sustainability, and the name or the phrase circular economy comes to my mind. Is it? Could you maybe shed a bit of light on that? Is it a thing, and what does it really mean to banks, and what will it mean to the banks in the next 2-3 years?
Well, thank you for that question. It's something that is very close to me. In fact, my last book was about circular economy, and it's a new old thing, right? So I always try to bring it down to people and say, when you look out there, and even here you have green things here, they all live in circles. So, you know, if the leaves fall down from a tree, they don't become rubbish, but they become the nourishment of tomorrow. And that is the nature. Whereas what we've created in the past couple of years is not in that kind of way of thinking of doing it. Just look at the beautiful things you're wearing, right? Or me as well. Those things will become waste, right? At some point. Now, when I ask you, can you show me some of the clothes of your grandparents? You probably won't be able to show them because they were still done in a different way, so they could become recycled. So there is many things. So everything in this room is waste, right? It's not to be recycled. And that is one of the ideas that the very founders of the idea of circularity brought back in. They said, why do we do it like that, and why don't we do it in a way that it becomes recyclable? And there's many definitions now, there's many products around that. Also we as a venture capital investor invested heavily in that area, and there's everything from watches to indeed clothes that become circular in that space. And that is very interesting also when you think about banks and about products and so forth. So ESG and so forth is defined by the EU, that's all there. But the next step beyond that is circularity. And then you look into Zurich, which has it in its constitution. You look into other places. So it's gaining more momentum. And I'm very sure that the first products will become largely available in the next 2 years.
Got it. So this means it's more going to impact the product on the offering side of banks. It's more an opportunity that banks will start to focus on.
Absolutely, and it very much comes down to which banks, right? So you have the more local ones who are probably moving a bit faster. You have some of the global players who are also trying to establish themselves as a bank of tomorrow, and it's very important. And the last thing I would like to mention is it's really a thing about the next generation. So my son, he's 16 now, and he's permanently challenging me. He said, "You're talking about circular economy. How circular are you really?" And then when you look at him, and it's a totally different generation, he's already doing things that I don't care about, right? One example is I asked him, "What car do you want to have?" And he says, "What do you mean? I just need something to go from A to B. And if I want to drive for whatever car, I rent one for the weekend and that's it, but I don't want to have a car." And I'm like, oh, wow, that's a totally different way of thinking. And a bank today, which wants to be successful tomorrow, needs to think about them because they will be their clients in a few years, right?
Brilliant. Now we've gone across multiple areas and topics. To me, I want to, towards the end of the section, just want to zoom out, bringing us back to today, right? What are the 3 things that you believe banks are not thinking about and are focusing today? And if you had an input or an advice of something they should think about and do today that will create a competitive advantage in the future, what would those be?
So I think at the end of the day, it is still regulation, which is mostly treated by banks as a cost factor, where I say for those really leading banks and really understanding how to use regulation, how to set up your structure for tomorrow, it's the most important thing. So it's part of your strategic part and not part of your cost of business. So I think that's the first thing I would change. Then we touched upon it a little bit. Digital assets and so forth are changing the game. It's like the internet changed everything. When you think about, I had an uncle who was a trader who was trading at the stock exchange, and within weeks, everything became digital, and global application of digital assets will change that as well. So that means that the universe you're doing or you're working with for your clients becomes magnified and becomes increased dramatically. And then you have to think about applications of things like sustainability plus, because the next generation, irrespective of what somebody says from a political perspective, they will be focusing on that. And you as a provider of solutions have to bring in products.
And that was real intense and really also a bit forward-looking. Thanks a lot, really, for the inputs and the insights in the conversation. To the audience, I hope you had really good takeaways. We'll be very happy to also get your inputs and feedback. And just wanted to say final thanks to Günther for making time. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.